All right, everyone, welcome into the Hours. I'm Mark. I'm joined by Tyler. Together, we are SAVI Basketball, and I'm fired up for this episode. We're going to talk about 7 principles of what I would call a master coach or an expert coach. But the impetus of this, is that the right word? Impetus of this episode today is Tyler recorded a 7 principle guide for youth coaches. And it was awesome. And I watched it and I texted him and I was like, this is incredible. This is for all coaches. So as we were preparing for today's podcast episode, I said, hey, the topic has to be these 7 principles because as many people as possible need to hear it. And we really started to build this art of coaching course for both SAVI Basketball, but also TOC Coach. For those that don't know, TOC Coach is our membership community built all around leadership and culture building. We've partnered with JP Nerbun, who's an expert in that field and just shares a lot of the same principles, methods, and philosophies as us that we use in SAVI Basketball. But this applies for all coaches. So whether you're a basketball coach at any level or soccer, volleyball, football, you will get a lot out of today's episode. So Tyler, you crushed the 7 principles of youth coaching that I am going to just rename for today, just 7 principles to be a master coach. You want to talk about a little bit about what went into those 7 principles?
Not really.
Well, but that was a quick episode. We'll see you next time.
Okay, quick tip to all coaches. Record yourself and watch yourself or listen to yourself coach. We all have blind spots. Mark, you have a wonderful voice, your tone of voice. And I know this because I've been re-listening to a few episodes of The Hours recently. And I'm like, Mark's voice sounds so good. Why does my voice sound so annoying? I also had a complete blind spot. I was saying a lot, and I had no clue that I was saying a lot until I listened. And it immediately made me conscious of how often I use that word. And I listened to our most recent one and I said less. No one coached me. I just looked at myself, listened to myself. Coaches, take the actual challenge. There's a little bit of friction to do it, but mic yourself up. Get a little Bluetooth microphone. Your kids probably already have one for their TikToks. Get a little Bluetooth microphone, put it on your lapel, and just record. You don't even have to have video. And then listen to yourself coach a practice in the car. Your articulations will get better. You'll realize exactly how long you were talking when you should have not been talking. You'll hear your tone. You'll feel like you're encouraging. You'll probably sound negative. You'll realize how little you use names. You'll realize how frustrated you get with one player when you don't get frustrated with the other player. You'll learn so many things. I don't even know all the things you'll learn. You can coach yourself if you just have the data. Quick tip, listen to yourself. We all have blind spots. And my hope, you ready, Mark? I'm bringing it back. Our hope with the 7 principles for coaching mastery is we want you to rate yourself on these 7. Get your score. All right. How many out of 7 do you do, or how well do you do these 7? Mark and I will rate ourselves on these, and this is going to be on a pass-fail. For each of these, I'm going to give a very clear, measurable pass-fail benchmark, and Mark and I will say if we pass-fail, and I want to see if you pass-fail. So what's your score out of 7? How many of these 7 things do you pass? Are you a master coach according to these 7 SAVI principles? So that's the intro, Mark. Let's get started.
All right. Well, before we get started, 2 things. Number 1, my blind spot is I say so much. I can't stand it. Every time I hear myself say so, I'm like, you could just do without that. And then my second one is thank you for the compliment on my voice. I think my voice sounds like a garbage disposal, but I have an App State shirt on, and they toyed around with me being the voice on like our intro, like that played over the loudspeakers and I was like, absolutely not. I cannot hear myself every game day over the loudspeakers because I hate listening to myself. But kudos to you watching The Hours, and as promised, we'll dive into these 7 principles. How about that?
Good.
First principle Tyler talked about was letting the rice cook. He claims there's an ancient Chinese proverb that says talk doesn't cook rice. Tyler, you want to tell us about that one?
I mean, just ask ChatGPT if there's an ancient Chinese problem that talk doesn't cook rice, and I believe that is the case. Actually, it was in a book. I can't remember which book. It was really it may have been Resilience, where at the start of every chapter there was some quote about the topic, and I believe that's where I got that one. It was talking about trending towards action. The best leaders and the most inspirational individuals that I've been around have a tendency towards action, not a tendency towards talk. They do things. And that's really the idea of this principle. Well, if you are that person, if you're a doer, if you get things done, if you are, a figure it out person, then you'll resonate with this. What's interesting is so many head coaches, so many coaches in all sports are doers. You're active, you get things done, you find a way, you're a leader. And yet, our leadership often is the obstacle to our players being people of action because we spend too much time talking and we don't allow them to act. And them acting is really us creating the space to let the rice cook. The conflict here is we see error, we see correction, we see opportunity. And the novice coach or the dilettante, that's a word. The dilettante coach, which basically means an initiate, someone early on in their journey, everything they see, they say. And every time you see, stop and say something about what you see, you take the lid off the rice and the work stops. The rice can no longer cook, and you're actually the barrier, the obstacle to what you want, which is developing habits, getting more game-like reps, improving skill and mastery. So that's the concept here, is really a play to talk ratio, and knowing when to step back and let the environment that you've created intentionally just do the work.
All right, so I'll add common question that we get from coaches like, how much do I stop? Right? I feel like if I just go out and let my team play games at practice, then we're going to miss opportunities to learn. And I would actually agree with that. You can't. Can you get better by just like rolling the ball out and play games? Yes. Are you maximizing your potential? I would say no. That's where Tyler's talking about shaping the environment. That's where we use constraints. We want to modify the game in which it's implicit learning by your players participating in the game, the learning will occur. So it's not roll the ball out and play 5-on-5. It's play, whether it's a small sided game or 5-on-5, but with the environment shaped to where the skill, the concept that you're trying to teach will emerge. And again, just by participating, your players will learn. I'll give you two things that has helped me to let the rice cook is number one, wait for something to be a trend or a pattern before you stop play. So I'm not going to stop it for every single one off because if we coach everything, we're actually coaching nothing. It's the equivalent of highlighting every single word in a book. You've highlighted nothing. You've just kind of changed the color of the page. We want to make sure that we're highlighting and coaching specific things. Now, let's say the focus of this game was, clicks, right? We want the ball to move quickly and somebody sticks the ball. Okay, well, let the rice cook. See if the next time that player gets a catch, the ball moves. Next time another player gets a catch, the ball moves. Okay, that was a one-off. We don't have to address it, but maybe it happens 3 or 4 times. Stop. And then my second thing that has helped me let the rice cook is teaching 7-second sound bites. And to do that, you have to have really clear communication. I'm coaching a team right now, and in our first practice, we got so much better just because we established some language and communication where I could stop and teach in 7-second sound bites, and the team could instantly apply what I was saying because they had experience to reference from. Oh, that's another one. You said action. Anytime I'm starting something, whether it's building a course, whether it's writing an email, I just get started and that shows me the way. So how do you apply that as a coach? Just play 5-on-5 and they will show you what needs to be taught. I am flying out after we record this podcast to go run a program clinic. And the very first thing that we're doing, not 5-on-5, but we are playing 4-on-4. We're going to go 4-on-4 flow game. And this is going to allow me to learn some names. It's going to allow me to see the team play. What's their shot selection like? What's their spacing look like? What's their ball movement look like? Can they play off 2 feet? All those things are going to show me in the first 15 minutes, and that's going to help me tweak my way forward. You should go into every single practice just like that. The master coach, and you'll be a master coach after you apply these 7 principles, can watch their team play and say, okay, this is the highest leverage thing that we need to do coming out of this game. So I gave you 3 things. Those are 3 things that have helped me let the rice cook. Tyler, I'm ready to rate myself.
Okay. This is 7 principles to coaching mastery. 7 is the key word. We believe that simplicity wins here at SAVI. So 70 is the percent. Are you at or above 70% of uninterrupted reps play rice cooking versus 30% everyone is stopped and listening to you talk and correct? That is the benchmark. This is pass fail. You pass if 70% or more of your practice time is uninterrupted with your talking. Now, that does not include one-on-one conversations on the side. That does not include like encouragement or celebration during live play. That doesn't fall into it. If you stop everything and are talking, that is what we're talking about here. You pass or fail, Mark?
Oh gosh, I used to fail miserably at this. So rewind 5 or more years ago, horrible at this. I was probably flipped. Now I would say I pass.
Yeah, good. I also would say I now pass, and also would say I used to fail. I started my coaching career really like learned how to teach and develop doing 8 hours of individual one-on-one sessions per day for 4 or 5 years. And I did that 8-9 months out of the year. Then for 3 months, I would go out and run 10 to 12 weeks of 120 person basketball camps, where the day was broken up into 3 1-hour lectures in a classroom where I only talked, and then a 2-hour gym session where I spent most of the time talking. So in the one-on-one sessions in my early days of running camps, I was absolutely flipped. And now I am happy to report a much more enjoyable, fruitful experience, having passed the letting the rice cook ratio test. Drop your score in the comments, send us a message. And now is a great time to let you know. We have developed TOC Coach, which is our community, completely free to join for all coaches of all sports to go and develop the art of coaching and how to develop a transformational culture. Check it out. The link will be in the description here. TOC Coach or tocculture.com will get you there. Please join it. It's completely free to join, and we will actually have the PDF of these 7 principles in there, along with a thriving community where you can learn how to coach better. Share it with coaches of all sports, please.
Yeah, I want to clarify one thing. So with SAVI Basketball, we have a 7-day free trial where you can join us for 7 days absolutely free. TOC Coach is just absolutely free. No trial needed. It's completely free. You'll instantly have access to hundreds of coaches that are committed to being better leaders and culture builders. Content, the conversation is already really, really good in there. Lots to learn. So not a trial. You jump in 100% free.
Beautiful. Mark, and actually everyone, TOC Coach is what we've developed for all coaches. So again, this is not just for basketball coaches. Please share it with any other coaches you run into. And we've made it free because we want to have a massive impact. All right, Mark, you want to take us into the second one?
Yeah, the second principle is to create an anti-fragile environment. That means we can't be broken down, right? Like our environment is going to be anti-fragile. When you have a fragile offense, if you're playing against a disruptive defense, well, they can take you out of what you're trying to do. We believe conceptual offense is anti-fragile because no matter what the defense does, they're wrong. And we want to build an environment at practice that embraces messiness. It embraces adversity, because if you want everything to be perfect, it'll always be broken because practices are not going to be perfect. Players are not going to be perfect. So just like on offense, if defense does this, we counter that. If they do something else, well, we have a counter to that as well. We want to have that same mentality as we go into practice, where your job is actually to create the right amount of adversity that'll stretch and grow your players. Because when we face adversity, that means there's a lesson that we need to learn. There's a skill that we need to get better at. There's a test that we need to pass. There's something that is going to make us better on the other side of that. So we don't run from adversity. We lean into adversity because those are opportunities for us to grow as coaches, but also for our players to grow as people and as athletes. So the struggle is actually what makes you better. It's what we're trying to dial up when we talk about creating an environment. It's actually an environment of problems that our players have to find solutions to.
Yeah, let me give you really clear examples of a fragile environment and two of our favorites here: three-man weave and defensive shell. So three-man weave, really, really simple. I'm not against running and passing and catching. Okay, those are important things. But three-man weave is fragile. If someone does not pass and run behind their pass, they break it. It's fragile. It's broken. One mistake and it's broken. And we can all recall all the times that we participated in or did three-man weave. Nope, you did it wrong. Go back and do it again. Nope, you dropped the ball. Go back and do it again. Nope, you traveled. Go back and do it again. Fragile. You break it over and over again. And when it can be broken so easily, three bad things happen. And gosh, I don't know if this is the right order, but one, it creates a really downer environment, right? Fail, 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 boo, 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 no, 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 no. No one enjoys it. No one likes feeling that way. Like every time you drop grandma's china and it shatters on the floor, you feel bad about yourself. So why are we playing with china? It feels bad. Two, it limits the reps. Every time you have to stop something and go back and restart it, you're losing out on reps. It's another reason that fragile is bad. Third, it creates a negative connotation towards mistakes, whereas we want mistakes to be exciting because that's a sign of learning. So that's what we're trying to do, like as a principle, not against three-man weave, against fragile drills that result in those three things. Defensive shell is the exact same thing. It's demanding perfection and speaks in absolutes. And it has those same three steps. I don't need to give you the examples. So instead, we want to do activities and games and drills that are anti-fragile, that are the opposite of that maximize reps, that don't feel bad, and that celebrate mistakes. That when we get messy and throw crap on the ground and it goes all over the place, we smile and do the work to clean it up, because the cleaning up of the mess is where learning and growth happens.
Yeah, we actually had this conversation come up in TOC Coach. Speaking of, there's a coach that started a post that said, "Hey, I'm having trouble calling my athletes up instead of calling them out." He feels like he's calling them up, but he feels like their reaction is like they're being called out. So I shared this image with him. Or it's how our communication is perceived. 7% is actually what you say. 38% is your voice and tone, and 55% is your body language. So how can you create an anti-fragile environment when there are mistakes? It's by your tone and your body language. Tyler and I were actually having this conversation after we ran a session on the court together a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how this conversation came up. We're talking about when a player takes a 5, which for us is a so-so shot. It's like we want our tone to go up. We want to smile and whoa, everybody see that?
That zoom in for you as well. For everybody
Not,
watching,
yeah.
we're not watching YouTube. You just went super close on Mark's face there.
Yeah.
His
I'm
smart
not going to
camera.
go. I'm not going to be able to fix this either. I haven't figured out how to fix it, so I'll just be really zoomed in for a little bit. But we want to say, hey, I can't even do it. That's a 5, and feel really good about it. Where it's just like, hey, that's feedback. Like that's why we're playing this game 9-7 or 0 or 50-point game. Like we're doing that to expose those bad shots so we can all learn from them.
Beautiful. All right, here's your test, and I'll score myself first on this one. Keeping it simple, right? Seven principles. Is your ratio at or above 7 to 1? So Mark talked about the tone of voice, the body language, the celebration to calling them out, right? Calling them out would be negative. Calling them up would be positive. Don't know if you're above 7-1, record yourself in a practice going back to the beginning. If your environment is fragile, you're going to be way below 7-1 on your tone, body language, whatever, of calling out versus calling up. But if you build an anti-fragile environment where you love the mess, your tone's going to switch. You're going to be above it 7-1. Mark, pass, fail.
Oh, I'm gonna go. Oh gosh, I'm gonna go fail because I feel like I have sporadic execution here. I am definitely not always 7-1. I am now if I'm intentional on it, I can get there, but to be there every single day, I'm gonna say fail.
Yeah, I'm going to fail this one also. And this is a wonderful moment for me. When I go and do an install with another program, I pass. I'm above 7-1. But with my own daughter's team or my own academy here locally, because I see them every day and I have building frustrations and I have this belief like, you should know this by now, which I think most coaches have with their teams. I get below it. And even in this moment, I know I'd rather be above it with my own team. It's a lot easier to be above this with someone else's team in a short window, and it's harder to sustain it. And so I empathize, coaches, but I also challenge you as I'm challenging myself. I need to be more intentional with this.
Yeah, and 7-1 is like that's really tough to get to on a consistent basis. But I would agree.
Yeah,
Short windows, somebody else's team, somebody else's kid, like doing a workout. It's a lot easier to get it than when you're coaching, your kid or your team.
absolutely. Yeah.
Use small-sided or modified games. Tyler, you want to talk about this one?
The game is not the perfect teacher. So in many there's a really, really good book called Range. If you haven't read Range as a coach, I encourage you to read it. There's another really good book called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. Range, I can't remember the author's first name, but Epstein, I believe, is the last name. Mark is going to look it up for us. Both of these books address many issues.
Range by David Epstein.
David Epstein, thank you. David Epstein, and then Daniel Coyle, The Talent Code.
Also author of The Culture Code, which is a really, really, really good book. A lot of what we teach at TOC Coach parallels with The Culture Code.
Beautiful. So 2 must reads for coaches. And I know that's a really common question. It's like, what books are you reading? I need to reread both of those books. But they both address this principle in multiple chapters. And it's essentially this. In the Talent Code, Daniel Coyle identifies these talent hotspots all across the world in things, disciplines from chess to tennis to music to soccer. And in each of these hotspots, he identifies, okay, what are the environments? What are the different constraints in the environments that allow the absolute best in the world to come from these obscure places? And one of the constraints or one of the qualities of the environment was using small-sided games. And this applies very differently in chess than it does to music, than it does to soccer, but it was true in all of them. So, for example, in soccer, the best soccer players in the world grew up playing futsal. And futsal, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I think it's 6-on-6 indoor with walls on a much smaller field than you would play an actual soccer field 11 by 11. And this is how those players grew up. In music, they would do these mini music battles. They wouldn't do full hour-long concerts or recitals. They would just battle each other for 2 to 3 minutes, and then they would move up and down a ladder, creating their own competitive cauldron, and that's how they developed in music. Same thing in tennis. They wouldn't go and play tennis on a full court. They'd play these mini tennis games with a modified ball with tape on the ground. It was almost closer to what a pickleball court would be, but with a modified tennis ball, it doesn't bounce as much, and that's how they developed. Across all disciplines, they used a smaller version of the game in order to develop. The exact same thing in range. They found that shorter periods of time, as opposed to full games, with much more limited options, less decisions to make, resulted in greater performance. So apply this to whatever sport you coach. We call it small-sided or modified games. We'll use basketball here because that's what I know the best. In basketball, the best way to develop a basketball player is not to go play 5-on-5. Sorry, every parent that wants their kid to play on a 10-foot hoop and go play 5-on-5. That's not the best way for your kid to develop. The best way to develop is an environment that has three things, more than three, but these are three. One, more RPMs, reps per minute. When you have a smaller space, you get with less people, you get more reps per minute. It's just a math problem. Okay. Two, shorter length of time. If your full game is normally 2 hours or 40 minutes long, play for 3 minutes. Shorter length of time equals higher effort, which is the sign of great athletes. They play harder. If you can have shorter periods of time, you can then train the motor, and you can incrementally increase that motor. Third, more fun, right? It's more fun when you can constrain the game, because if you lose, because losing is not fun, you can much more quickly play another game with a chance to win. Whereas if you're getting blown out for 40 minutes, that's not very fun. But if I'm blown out for 2 minutes, well, I won't get blown out by quite as much. And then I get to play another game and maybe have a chance to win. The moment you no longer have a chance to win is where most people's focus, effort, and energy go down. So play shorter games, smaller space, shorter games, higher energy, better development.
Yeah, I would say too, like obviously we're speaking to basketball mostly here, but any sport, less people, more space, more opportunity, more shots, more passes, more dribbling, more opportunities to be stretched outside of your current skill set. So you're growing. Um, and a narrower focus, which I think is going to be a principle that we touch on at some point. But you can narrow the focus to maybe we start this small sided game with this action, or maybe we start with a certain advantage. I love my favorite small sided games are one where we play +1 on offense, remove one defender. So we're playing 4-on-3, we're playing 2-on-1, 3-on-2, whatever it is. And it's amazing how many skills your players will have to apply, because we see offense as an application of skill. So it's a great way to align your skill development with your principles of play on offense and defense. There is, I guess, the pushback against this would be, oh, well, our rotations are different 5-on-5. So we only play 5-on-5 so we can get used to those rotations. I understand that argument. I just refuse to accept it because there's so much value in small-sided games, and everything doesn't have to be exactly representative of the game. In fact, if you want practice to be a little bit harder than the games, then remove some players, and you got to cover more space defensively. You got to, you have longer closeoffs, you have longer blockouts. There's so many more opportunities whenever you shrink the floor or limit the amount of players that are involved in the game.
The argument you just shared about our rotations are 5-on-5 is principle number 2: create an anti-fragile environment. If your rotations can only be practiced or executed 5-on-5, they're fragile and they're easily broken.
It means they're rule-based and not principle-based.
Exactly. So that's another just great benefit of checking yourself with small-sided or modified games. If it doesn't transfer to a smaller space and less people, it's not a good principle or a principle at all. We have a principle here at SAVI OC called the 3-10-30 principle. I'm going to make this rating harder than 3-10-30. The 10 in 3-10-30 is 10 minutes or less. So no game or activity goes longer than 10 minutes. We shorten it to increase intensity. I'm gonna shorten it even more today because 7 is our magic number for all the ratings. Do your games, do your activities last longer or shorter than 7 minutes? Pass, fail. And for clarification, and Mark clarified this for me recently, it just means that within that quarter of practice or section of your training, that individual game doesn't go longer than 7 minutes before you debrief it and go play again. We don't want games going longer than 7 minutes because that's when energy dips. As we all know, like every game has a bit of a bell curve. Like you start with really high energy at the start of any game. You're intense, aggressive, right? And then when you get into the middle of the game, when people get physically tired, when maybe a team pulls away, whatever, there's a lull. And then at the end of the game, next point wins, right? You get high energy. We're just trying to cut out as much of that middle portion of all games as possible so that over time we have more reps at maximum effort and energy. That's it. So pass fail, 7 minutes. Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Before I give my 7-minute rating here, I'll also say this: definitely apply the 7-minute or the 10-minute for drills. Like drills going longer than 7 minutes or 10 minutes would feel like, I mean, as a coach, if you're bored, your players were bored.
We're going to do show for 30 minutes if we have to until we get this perfect.
I saw a phenomenal Instagram reel or whatever you call it post about this was a college hooper. I wish I could shout out the handle, but he was like every shell drill, and it's like he's going like through the motions, like ball, help, like really low energy, and then he cuts to himself playing the coach, and he's like, if we don't do this right, we're gonna get on the line and run, and then he cuts back.
Shane Hennon?
No, it wasn't Shane. This is like a current
ones.
Yeah, Shane has some pretty good stuff. It was very similar style to Shane, where he's like cutting to himself, playing multiple people. This was a current college hooper, which made it even funnier.
Oh, yeah,
but he cut to the shell after the threatening to run, and everybody was going crazy. Like people were like hanging from the rim and like taking their shirt off and like just going nuts with it. But that's the problem with shell drill. It's a drill, right? So all right, long way to say. Yeah, I would say I passed this one for sure.
I would say I passed this one too.
Here's my caveat. I like to play a lot of games. Like we play a lot of 5-on-5 to 5, or I like to play. Here's how you keep games shorter. I like to play to 8 by 2s and 3s. So if you take a possession off, you probably lose. Games usually last about 5 minutes. Now, if you just go through a stretch where you can't buy a bucket, you're like, oh, geez, like this is going to go longer because we can't score. You can always just stop and modify. Hey, next basket wins, right? Whatever the case, or just let that one go. That'd be one of the times you violate, but I'm definitely a pass here.
Yeah. I just got to give a shout out to my college coach at the University of Alberta, Don Horwood. Old guy when I played for him. Coach of the year multiple times, national championships. Most of the things that he did were very traditional, like from a system standpoint, but from a practice structure standpoint, he was ahead of his time. He's the one that introduced me to 5-on-5 to 5, and he said these exact words. And as a player, I didn't really get it. He's like, we're playing to 5, so you don't take a defensive possession off by 1s and 2s. So you don't take it. He's like, that's why we're doing it. He's like, we don't do this for our offense. We do it for our defense. You must play hard. If you don't play hard, you're just going to lose. And then we had a running consequence for every loss, and we just played again because he just wanted us to play hard. And we spent, I loved our practices at U of A, because we spent over half of our practice playing 5-on-5 to 5. Because he's like, if we just play harder than the other team and we're better conditioned than them, we will win. And he also had the most horrific conditioning. Like we knew what we were doing every Tuesday, every Wednesday, and every Friday on preseason. And it was horrific conditioning. But we were the best conditioned team and we played harder. And so we went to the national tournament every year. It's actually pretty simple.
You started that one by saying your coach was really old, and then he introduced you to, and I'm like, James Naismith? That would be pretty cool. How old is this guy?
Oh, man. Shout out Don Horwood.
Yeah. All right.
We should probably speed up.
Are we going two-parter, or are we powering through?
I think this one would really benefit from being all together. So let's speed up, because a lot of these principles build on previous principles. So I don't think we need to go as deep.
All right. So principle number 4, I said it when we use small-sided games, we can narrow the focus. So narrow the focus is principle number 4. And we might have even referenced this earlier. Like you said, they're all building off each other. If you try to coach everything, you're coaching nothing. One thing that we believe in SAVI is just like high energy and fun. And how do we do that? It's connection, it's communication, and it's celebrations. Tyler actually celebrated one of our coaches in one of our gym sessions of, hey, I noticed you didn't coach some things, and that was a celebration. You coached the main thing, the most important thing, but you chose not to coach everything, which is the sign of a master coach.
Yeah. And we'll go ahead and continue to use the 3-10-30 principle. And the 3-10-30 principle is three things, 10 minutes or less, get them going in 30 seconds. So this will just be a really easy self-rating. Do you limit yourself to three? No more than three teaching points, points of precision, principles within any segment of your training or practice. Do you limit yourself to three and keep feedback within those three things? So, Mark, in your last segment where you played 4-on-2 at Florida Gulf Coast, right? What were the three principles or three teaching points you limited yourself to the last time that you installed or taught that?
0.5 catch reads,
And,
counter.
just unpack 0.5 catch reads a little bit more for everybody, because a lot of the comments we're getting when we use SAVI language is like, what's a 9, 7, and 5? What's a 0.5 catch read? So all of these things we don't just explain within our SAVI basketball membership. We actually provide you the teaching videos, the actual games and drills in order to install it. So like, that's why we don't go deep here, but I'll do this one for you, Mark, real quick. 0.5 is basically making your read before you catch so you can execute within 0.5 seconds of the catch. Shoot a driver, move it, make that read prior to the catch so that you can execute with 0.5 and keep it playing fast. So 0.5.
Yeah. So in Gulf Coast, we create catch reads and smile reads. So we're playing off the catch, we're reading closeout before the catch, like Tyler said, where we can shoot it, drive it, or move it. And then once we put it on the floor, there is a help defender coming in. So I would say 1, we'll read closeout before the catch. Number 2, it's 9 or no. Number 3, it could be a defensive thing, like let's close off every catch on the perimeter, something like that. But in the key, like, so for me, if I'm going to rate myself, this would be a sporadic execution. When I'm intentional, absolutely, I can have my 3 things planned. My feedback is designed around those 3 things. But if I'm not intentional, it's really easy to continue to add on and start to coach or over explain. For those that don't know, we do film breakdowns for our members. This member asked me to do a practice breakdown. Just look at my practice plan and give me some feedback. He actually put his 3 things for the rule of 3, 10, and 30, which was awesome. But he was like, hey, I'm having a really hard time of picking my 3 things. Well, my principle is like, hey, if it's a new game or a new drill, a new activity that we're doing, the 3 things should just be around the organization of how we're going to get started. And then you can start to narrow the focus in your teaching. And that might just be 1 thing, might be 2 things, might be 3 things the first time you do it. But your goal might just be like, hey, I'm just teaching them this activity. And then as we do it throughout the season, we'll start to build the skill on top.
I would give myself a fail on this as well. And I'm really glad we're doing this exercise because I needed it. I see too many things. I do coach too many things, and it is getting in the way of the speed of our players' progress. That's where it's really good within your practice plan to ensure you have your overarching principles. And then for each activity or quarter or game that you're playing, what principles are you limiting, not just yourself, but are you limiting your assistant coaches to as well? If they know the focus, they're not going to get outside the focus. And just a quick tip here. Lead coaches can stop play. Support coaches cannot stop play. And this is a way to help principle number 1, which is let the rice cook. So rate yourself on this one. Do you keep yourself to 3 teaching points or less for each section or each activity? Yes or no? Put your comment below. Let's move on to principle number 5. And principle number 5 is +1 coaching. So here's the idea of +1 coaching. Only build or add 1 thing at a time. And I would even apply +1 coaching, I would definitely apply +1 coaching to the previous principle of narrowing the focus. And let's say that you are narrowing the focus. We'll use Mark's example of 0.5 catches, 9 or no, and close offs for Florida Gulf Coast. Pick 1. 0.5 catches. Once you see that you have made progress or are hitting an acceptable level of 0.5 catches, then +1. Okay, now let's make a better smile read for 9 or no. Focus on that. coach that. And then add the defensive focus. Okay, we have to make sure we're making every catch a dribble and we're closing off. That's the idea of how you actually execute the narrowing of the focus. Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say my +1, given those three things, would be, okay, we said 9 or no on the smile read. Now, if chess is in front, let's counter for a 9. And if no 9, then we kick. So the counter might be if a chess is in front, meaning defender, is in your way, pro hop. If that doesn't create a 9, then we kick. That would be an example of +1ing, which you said you took it right out of my mouth.
Yeah, which the reason this is so important is because so few coaches do it. I hope that this is where you need to record yourself, but we're giving you feedback because we've seen this with thousands and thousands of coaches. All right, everyone, we're gonna work on 9s, but if you have chest in front, use this counter. And if you use your counter and you're still not open, then go ahead and make a fake and an arum, and then you can make that's +3. And don't even give them the +1 because that gets in the way. 3, 10, 30 rule. 3 things, 10 minutes, get them going within 30 seconds. You can't get them going within 30 seconds if you're giving them every possible outcome that might actually happen and trying to coach all of those things. That is not +1. Just get them going. Go attack and get a 9. Boom, you're done. 30 seconds. They're having trouble getting 9s. It's time to then +1 and say, okay, if the chest is in front, use this counter. Go. The goal is get them going quickly. And I'll just give you a likely challenge. Your players initially, because they haven't been coached this way before, are going to want more. But coach, what if? And you just say, no questions, figure it out. And after you do that for a period of time, and it might be 2 weeks, then they're going to stop asking the questions and start problem solving themselves and knowing that you're going to give them assistance and help once they run into an obstacle that they don't have a solution for.
Figure it out is an anti-fragile environment, right? As a coach, you should make yourself increasingly more and more unnecessary, right? Because in the game, they can't what if you to death. Maybe in timeouts they can, but they're going to have to figure it out and they're going to have to find those solutions. So really, all of these principles that we've shared so far is making yourself increasingly unnecessary, right? As a coach and being more of a player-led program.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Chris, who he's our director of our local SAVI Academy. And if you ever do want coach development, go and come work for a place like our academy or go work with Mark. But I've been working with Chris specifically on this one of allowing them to figure it out, because his tendency and most coaches' tendencies is to organize. And this is specifically the one where I'm stretching him. I said, no, do not organize. Require them to figure it out on their own, because most players just look to the coach to tell them where to go stand. And if we have to tell them where to stand, they're not going to run to their shape on offense. They're not going to establish their transition roles. They have to figure it out. And I think that this +1 coaching is once they figure out this, then +1 to give them the next challenge. That's what it is. And it goes directly, both Mark and I believe, on this one, pass or fail. Do you +1 at a time or more than 1 at a time? That's the pass or fail grade here, Mark. What would you give yourself on this one? Pass?
Give myself a pass.
I'm going to give myself a pass as well, which goes directly into principle number 6, which is coach is a guide and not a dictator. A dictator is a joystick coach that is dictating every action. Pass to Sammy, run over here, shoot it. That's joysticking. That's being in the moment. That's giving concurrent feedback. It's dictating play, where if you were hit by a bus, would your team be better or worse? If your team would be worse in a game, if you were immediately hit by the bus, then you are a dictator. When you coach the guide, you are pretty much irrelevant once the game goes on, other than can we establish good rotations and substitution patterns? And can we provide timely reminders during dead balls and timeouts? That's really all we're doing at that point. And that is your pass or fail on this one. Do you joystick or do you not? And is there some level of joysticking? Definitely. So what level is acceptable? Let's go back to our 7s, 70%, right? So 70% of the time, are you not joysticking? Are you not dictating? 30% of the time, you might remind Mark Bolt, right? Or Leah Wall, or Charlie Wolf, right? That would be 30% or less. Do you pass or fail on that one, Mark?
I'm gonna go pass. I do give buzzwords and like those little reminders like you're talking about. And I think if I was not aware of this principle, I would really fail in this one. But when I find myself giving that concurrent feedback, I can recognize it in the moment and say, ooh, I need to shut up and scale back a little bit and let them play. I'm gonna give you three E's. Good friend Chris Oliver shares these really good. We've already talked about environment. That's the first E. You're the shaper of the environment, and then your players go explore. And then after exploration, you give explicit feedback or explicit teaching. And the reason why those three E's work in order is when you now give teaching or feedback, they have the experience to draw from. But if you're always dictating every single move, or you over explain things, you don't operate with the rule of 3, 10, and 30, or you're not plus oneing, you're giving too much, they actually don't have the experience to say, oh, like I just did that. I felt that. Now I understand what my coach is saying. So environment, explore, and then give explicit feedback. And those are not concurrent, meaning not during live play. We all know about the science, how long it takes people to refocus when they hear their name and all that stuff. So yeah, I will pass on this, but only because I have some self-awareness here.
Yeah. Okay. I just made a note of something I want to do at the end here. That was principle number 6. Let's finish up with principle number 7. Build systems for long-term athlete development. The opposite of this is doing things that will help you win on Friday or win this week, or make your 5th grader the highest ranked player in the state of Arizona. There's a kid that I used to train. He's a 5th grader. And I saw him. I hadn't seen him for 3 or 4 months. And I said, "Oh man, Callum, what's going on, man?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just been working. I got ranked." I said, "Oh, what does that mean?" He's like, "I went to a camp and they ranked me in the state, and I'm pretty high." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "So tell me about this camp. What did you guys do?" He's like, "Oh, we played a bunch of games, and then I got a ranking." And I said, "Okay, what does that mean though?" He said, "Well, it means I'm ranked." I said, "But what have you been getting better at? He's like, I don't know, but I must be getting better because I got ranked." And I said, "So what does that mean for you, like day to day now?" He's like, "Well, I just feel like, I think that I'm now one of the best players in the state." I'm like, "But what does that mean?" He's like, "I don't know. Like, I've achieved my goals." I said, "Oh dear. You're in 5th grade and you've achieved your goals. That's not the mindset that I would want for you. I would want you to have a much bigger goal, a bigger dream than being ranked as a 5th grader." Because usually when we've achieved our goals or we get ranked, we've arrived in 5th grade, it leads to a lack of motivation, a lack of hunger, a lack of a growth mindset, which is, I think, a huge danger in ranking players at a young age or focusing on short-term wins, which is what ranking is. Instead, when in doubt, zoom out and ask yourself the question, what is going to serve this player, this team, this group in the long term? And I think this is a wonderful one to apply to parents. Okay, Mark, pretend you're a parent of an athlete right now. I know it's hard. Pretend you're a parent of an athlete, but pretend you're not you. Pretend you are most sports parents. Okay. What is one likely behavior that you would exhibit on the sideline during games and practices, specifically in what you might say directed towards your son or daughter?
Shoot it. I would
Okay.
joystick stick for them to shoot it when they have the ball.
All right. Okay. So let's role play this out. Hey, Mark, what I want you to zoom out 7 years from now. And your son or daughter, 7 years from now, what's your biggest dream for your son or daughter with sports 7 years from now?
I'm the irrational sports parent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that they are playing at a Division I school.
Okay. What is the greatest threat or danger that could keep your child from achieving that goal or that dream?
They don't play enough minutes, or they don't. Their coach doesn't utilize them correctly.
Okay, I think that's probably where you're sourcing a lot of your behavior from. I actually think there's a bigger threat, and I think the stats would back me up on this. The biggest threat is that your son or daughter quits playing basketball between now and then. As youth sports, over 70% of youth sports participants do not play varsity basketball because they quit, not because they were cut. Because they quit. They quit because they no longer enjoy or love the game. Their desires have changed. They get burnt out or whatever. The greatest danger to your child not achieving their and your dream is them quitting. And so I would just encourage you to continue to have that lens is what can you do to ensure that your child doesn't quit, doesn't dislike their experience, right? And so like what I'm trying to build and what I'm asking you to help me build is an environment where they love the game and have fun, because that's the greatest indicator of whether or not they'll achieve really high level success. If they love it enough to continue to put in the time, because it's really just a math problem. People quit and don't put in the time and don't train on their own because they no longer love the game or love the experience, or they're not having fun with it. Whereas when they love it themselves intrinsically, not because you love it or because you want it, well, that's when they have a chance of being great. So I think that's an example just for everyone listening of maybe a way to have a conversation, but also an approach as a coach, as a parent, whatever, is zoom out 7 years as opposed to 7 days, right? Within 7 days, shoot it. So you score, so we win, right? Within 7 days, put in this sick quick hitter play so that we score, so that we win. Within 7 days, stick the bad player under the basket so they don't touch the ball so that we win. Whereas 7 years, we want everyone to love the game. We want to develop skill sets, every player, every skill. 7 years from now, so they enjoy the game, that is the win. And I think that is building a system for long-term development. So that's the pass fail. Do you have the 7-day or the 7-year mindset? Should I go first, Mark, on this one, or should you?
Yeah, you go first.
I passed this one. But I don't think it would be as easy of a pass if I was coaching a team and my livelihood depended on my success. It's really hard. So I empathize. It's really easy for me to say zoom out when my whole job is helping you and other players like have this experience. So I recognize the challenge of it. But I also really believe that if you do embrace this long-term mindset, you will get the 7-day success that you're looking for.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, very similar answer. Most recently, coaching at the Division I level, very hard to be 7-year driven, right? I mean, you should build your program with those values that players will take beyond the court. But with the transfer portal and the pressure and all those things, I can see how that tug there. I would say I'm a pass here, and only because I really enjoyed leading and building a program
Yeah.
versus just coaching a team. And I found that actually gave us a huge advantage over the coaches that just coach a team every single year. And it's like, okay, season's over. We all unplug. I'm not going to get any better. I'm not going to have any systems in place for my players to get better. And then we'll come back in August and run this thing back. When you run like a 12-month program, it doesn't mean that all your players have to be basketball only or your sport only, but when you're constantly developing, you have a plan for every month of the year. That's actually what I loved about being a head coach. So I'll say I'll pass there.
Yeah. So what's your score? Where did you pass? Where did you fail, coaches? That's where you probably need to direct some attention, and drop us a dime in the comments and just say, hey, here's where I'm doing well. Here's where I failed. And if you want to turn your fails into passes, head to TOC Coach, link in the description below. It's our school community. It's completely free to join, and it will help you get better at these different principles of successful coaching.
Yeah.
And it's what we're doing to help you. So I'm excited to work with you more.
Yeah, I'll say we'll teach you the how in all these things, like how to be a guide, not a dictator, how to utilize small-sided games, because that's where the money is. That's what you want to know. You want to know the application. Also, if you are a pass to all of these, send your resume to mark@savicoach.com. I'd love to meet you and probably hire you.
Absolutely.
Stay savvy and stay TOC, coach.
Later.